Hi everyone. Welcome to the main video, which tells you about gives you some advice about how to craft a story. So you are going to be on a simulated panel, and you're going to be sat in the seat of a stakeholder, where instead of you listening to their stories, that you will be a storyteller, sharing it to a panel, just to give you an idea of what it must feel like to share a story in front of a panel. My company is called Behind Your Mask, and the reason for this is because the purple part of the logo represents a mask that is in monochrome. And this monochrome mask represents your professional mask. But what makes us more human are the colored circles. They are our human experiences, our stories, our lived experiences. And so the reason why I'm helping you with this is to kind of helping people get behind that mask and to show who they are as a human. And so I am well aware that you, as executive directors or aspiring chief executives, sometimes it can be difficult to get behind that personal mask. But I'm going to ask you to do this in the context of your own experience of the NHS, not as a staff member, but as a service user. So, when I say storytelling and sharing a story, as you know, these stories are not creative writing. They're not fictional. These are true experiences. And so these are personal narratives. So you will be sharing a first-hand account of an experience centered around an NHS or healthcare experience and to share the emotions about it. And by being honest, open, and candid about it, you are inviting the listener in to understand the extent or the depth of your lived experience. So again, I make no apology for the pediatrician in me. How would I explain a personal narrative to a child? Is that it's about you. It's a story with events told in order from your life. A story has a beginning, has a middle, has an end, and you need to focus on a particular aspect of it. And so the story from your life will be a healthcare encounter or a series of healthcare encounters on a theme. And it's an important, as you see at the bottom, you need to describe the senses. What did it feel like from a sensory point of view, but also what did it feel like from an internal point of view? And that means focusing on the emotions. Now, when I coach people to share, whether you're a staff member or a service user, when you're sharing it to people who have the influence to make change, the concept is that you are speaking truth to power. And so you are trying to influence those in power or the decision makers to speak truths. And often these truths can be joyful, but they can also be uncomfortable. And so speaking the uncomfortable truth to people in authority, it requires a bravery. And the bravery that is inspirational in 20th century history to me is that of Mahatma Gandhi, who spoke truth to power. The concept is called satyagraha, this kind of strength in your truth. And he did this at the end of the British Empire. And this is a painting related to the peaceful protests around salt and the taxation of salt for the local Indians by the British government. And so this speaking the truth, an uncomfortable truth about uncomfortable to those in power is takes a bravery. So this satyagraha is the thing that I would like you to challenge. Now, many people think are motivated to share their stories to stakeholder panels because they want to lead to change. So often these are the stories which describe an experience that perhaps was not desirable, which will hopefully influence and inspire people to make changes. But at the other side, we may also want to celebrate stories where we show things that are working, things that have been done well, we need to celebrate and do more of. Often these stories are often dismissed as, oh, pat on the back and we feel good. But actually, we need to celebrate and recognize what is working well and try to amplify those. And so, of course, when we think about the emotions, there will be stories that will be full of joy, that will be, of success. And so these are again, this is a strong emotion that you may want to celebrate as part of your story. Other stories may want to express gratitude for a positive experience, but even gratitude in the face of adversity. So, stories of gratitude could be another way of looking at it. You may also want to consider how you are perhaps a minority voice and perhaps thinking about your tribe. People like me, what sort of groups do you fit into? How do people like me experience this in the health service? And do other people like me experience the same type of thing? And so, there are elements of amplifying voices of the minority. But, even if you are not in the minority, thinking about your lived experience is still very important. And so again, many of our storytellers do represent a minority, either with a rare disease or a certain ethnic group or a certain patient population. So it's important to embrace that minority, speak truth to power, and craft a story with impact. So again, just to give you some inspiration about the types of stories that you can have, this could be very much about you, your choices, your experiences. So focusing on your own healthcare encounters. You may want to do it for somebody that you are responsible for. That could be your child or a parent or a sibling. And so thinking about the people that you're responsible for could be another healthcare experience that you may want to share a story about. Then also, if you are an advocate for somebody, so again, not somebody that you are perhaps related to, but somebody that you advocate for, or being a caregiver for, somebody who is not a blood relative. So this could be another aspect that you may want to focus on. Many stories can be focused on complaints, but maybe think about stories that are focused around a compliment. So if you want to compliment the health service on something that has worked well, or a positive experience, or a positive interpersonal encounter. So think about if you had to write a compliment to the health service based on your experience as a patient. Think of it that way. And of course, you may also think about if I had to complain about something to the health service, how can I craft a story that illustrates the problem and perhaps motivate or engage or inspire those in power to make a change? Many stories involve kind of challenges or good things when it comes to communication. So think about times when you've had good, bad, or mediocre communication with stakeholders or as a service user of the National Health Service. Other stories may be about processes. So, the patient journey, the patient experience. And I know the stories that I share are very much focused about process because the message I want to give are that actually these things, it's not about expertise, it's about expertise in logistics. And so, and how the logistics affect my patient experience. You may want to think about a story which has had a positive or a negative outcome, looking at what happened, what in the end, what happened to me. That may be another way of inspiring you to think about a story. And the stories that I'm particularly interested in and hope that you do are the hidden stories, the stories that perhaps you've never shared with other people, that only your nearest and dearest know about. Often they are personal and challenging for you to talk about, but often these are the ones which deliver the strongest messages. So I would encourage you to think about a personal or private story that has affected you from a healthcare perspective. And on that note, I know many people think, no, I can't face this. It's too difficult. It's too challenging. I do want to reassure you that this is something that I feel strongly about, and this is something that I have expertise in. And I would like to encourage you to think about those type of stories if you are comfortable with that. At the end of the day, if you are a storyteller to a stakeholder panel, you want to deliver a story which has impact. And that's what this is all about. And so, how do we deliver stories with impact? Now, again, as you as leaders, I want you to take your leadership hat off and think of you as a human, as a service user. You are probably very good at dealing and analyzing and presenting data. But a story which has impact and is a story which has data, and in the case of a story, a series of events, the factual list of what happened. But it's when you combine it with emotion, that is what is going to connect you with the people listening to your story. And I hope this is something that you discover, that connecting the human story, what makes a story human, are the emotions, not just the events. What is your goal in crafting a story? The goal should be a story that is no shorter than 5 minutes, but really no longer than 10, somewhere in that range. Stories that go on longer than 10 minutes, you start to lose focus. You can give a really punchy, impactful story in 5 minutes. People don't believe me, but you can. So I'm going to say minimum of five, but a maximum of 10. There are two elements that you need to think about when crafting a story. The first is the content. What are you going to say? And the second bit is the delivery. How are you going to say it? So it's the combination of these two that you have to balance in equal measure. Most of my input will be helping you craft the content in the first part of our coaching, and the second half of our coaching will be focusing on how you say it. But let's sort out the content first. In terms of the content, there are not many ingredients that we have to think about when we craft a story. And so, ingredient number one are the characters. Who is this happening to? And so, the main character is often you, but there may be other characters as part of your healthcare experience. The characters that are featured in the story need to go on a journey. And this journey needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning, we are introduced to the character, what's happening to them, who they are, what they're like as a person. And this character has to go on a journey, which then leads to some sort of crisis, some sort of climax. And after this climax, this character needs to adapt or change, and then this resolves into an ending. And so this is many soap operas and many books and many films follow this type of formula, a beginning, middle, and an end with an introduction, a crisis, and a resolution. But what makes a story impactful is a personal message. If you are telling the story, what is the moral of this story? What is the message that you would like to give? Why am I telling this to this panel? So remember, what is the reason that you're sharing this, and think about what your moral message is. And so, a story that has impact in terms of content needs characters who go on a journey which involves a crisis or climax, and the moral of the story needs to come from you. So, when it comes to engaging stories, really think about your beginning and really think about your end. You need to grab your audience at the beginning. So, you need to think about something that will be interesting, funny, or dramatic. The ending needs to be really polished, gripping. When I say gripping, polished and impactful and laden with your reflections and your personal message. As I said, the middle is so important. That crisis, that climax, that kind of turning point in this character's development, that really needs to be there in this story. And so, again, thinking about who the character is and what they go through, really remember what that climax is going to be. It may be useful when crafting your story to actually draw a timeline. And it's useful to kind of think about the chronology of events. So, what happened first and what happened last. But when you share your story, sometimes you may not necessarily share it in chronological order. You may actually start kind of further on down the line at the end and then go back to the beginning and work your way forward. You may start at the very beginning and work your way forward to the end, or you may start at the crisis. You never know. But that's very, very important to think about, to list out the times of the story that you want to tell. And remember that you're not telling a whole story. You need to focus on a particular episode or a particular series of events on the theme. I love this slide because this is the wheel of emotion. And again, when it comes to authenticity and vulnerability and what's going to engage you with an audience, with your listening panel, are the emotions. And remember, this is what is your panel needs to be responding to, is to acknowledge the emotions of the story. So at every series or part in the timeline, it's not just what happened, it's how did you feel about what happened. In terms of the delivery, I think the story is like a piece of art. Yeah, it's like a piece of music, and sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. So there needs to be a variability in the delivery of the thing. So I'm not going to make you into kind of Oscar-winning actors or actresses. I just want you to think about how can you make your delivery quite engaging with pauses, with silences, with change in pace or volume. These are things that you can consider. But before you share in front of a panel, a story with impact is not something that is just given off the cuff. You need to practice. You need to think about what your opening is, what the crisis is, what the ending is, how you're going to deliver it, and how you're going to say it, and what you're going to say. And so before you get into that panel, part of my coaching is I'm going to get you to practice. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. So just to summarize, in order to deliver a story with impact, once you know your content, you need to think about how you're going to vary how you say it. You need to practice and not wing it. And a story with impact will be a story about you. It may be about you will be involved, but you may be the main character, or you may be a secondary or even tertiary character. But most often, the stories will be about you. In order to deliver a story with impact, you need to combine data, as in what happened, with emotions. And really, the most important thing, particularly towards the end, is that you must have a message which is clear, concise, and compelling. What will the listening audience leave after hearing your story? And so, going back to Mahatma Gandhi, if we're speaking truth to power, you need to have this courage. You need to have this bravery. And it is through your story that you can lead to change. And so, by being a panel storyteller, you can be a change that you will see in the world, that you would want to see in the world. And so, in true British style, keep calm and speak truth to power. So I look forward to joining you and helping you in your storyteller journey. And if you have any questions, please email me. So the final video that you're going to watch next is what do I expect you to do before you book onto your first one-to-one storytelling coaching session with me. Thank you very much.